what yesterday's session was all about. Yesterday's session was on the power of forgiveness.
Can you give me an English
And we had a lot of brilliant insights that were given to us by the grace. And today's class is going to be on the power of consciousness. Okay? So please join me in welcoming Her Majesty Devaki Devi Dasi with 3 loud Haribol. Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
Hare Krishna. Om Agyantimandasya Gyananjalasharakaya Chakshunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guru Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Sthapanam Yenamutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swavadantikam Namam Vishnavada Krishnapista Bhuttale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deme Gaurvani Pachayani Nivishisha Shunyavadi Pasatani Shatani Vanchakapa Trivasha Kripa Sinivevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes, so first of all, thank you very much for coming together tonight on this Saturday evening and to churn some more topics. So yeah, tonight we have the topic of the power of consciousness. Yes, this is quite an intriguing topic, I think, because very often we use this term consciousness. After all, we are the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we use this term quite frequently, but we may not even clearly understand what consciousness actually is and how other people's consciousness affect us and our consciousness affects them and. So there's quite a few interesting things to talk about. And also Prabhupada was saying, before becoming Krishna conscious, we have to become first conscious. But so often we are so unconsciously floating through our day and our life, and we are not even mindful, how we affect others, how our words, our deeds affect others, and why we say things and do things. So we are often rather unconscious, which basically means tamaguna, actually. Yes, the more we are in tamaguna, the more unconscious we are. And the more we get out of tamaguna, then we become more conscious. So let us try tonight to become more conscious of consciousness. Yes. So let me first share in Bhagavad Gita 13:34. There Krishna gives a nice analogy. He compares consciousness to the sunshine emanating from the sun and flooding the whole universe. Where is it? 13:34. So I will read this to you just to cut time a little shorter, I will just read the translation. So that's 1334. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So that's a very nice analogy, which we can easily relate to. So just like the sun shines, the sunshine illuminates the whole universe, so consciousness illuminates, it floods the whole body, and it comes actually from the soul. Yeah, it's like the life force. Let me read the purport also, because Prabhupada explains it very nicely. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, or those situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. So let us try to be intelligent tonight. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combination of matter. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body, but the supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. So I guess we can say, thank God, we are only conscious of this one body and not of all bodies. Otherwise, we probably would go a little crazy. But yeah, so Prabhupada very nicely describes how consciousness is the proof of the presence of a soul. So it's not only in the human form of life, of course, but as soon as there's growth and there's life, in whatever species of life it may be, animal, plant, tree, so there's life, and that means there's also consciousness there. And in some species of life, that consciousness is more covered, a little more dull, and in some species of life, it is more alert, more awake, more elevated, like that. And as Prabhupada also explains, originally, because the soul is actually part and parcel of Krishna, originally the soul is by nature pure and has even the same qualities as Krishna, just in minute quantities. But now, because we are in this material world, the soul is covered. So, and also the consciousness emanating from the soul, the life force, is by nature also pure, originally. But again, being here in this material world in contact with the three modes of material nature. So then the consciousness gets contaminated. Yeah. And we can say, we can imagine a broad spectrum. On one end is that pure, original, divine, godly, sublime consciousness. And then at the other end is the highly contaminated with lust, anger, greed, envy, false ego consciousness. And the whole process of Krishna consciousness is meant to transform our consciousness back to that godly, divine consciousness. So, and it's a gradual process, a gradual journey. For some living beings, I dare say it's a journey over several lifetimes. But Krishna is so kind, he allows us to keep every tiny little bit of progress we have made. We continue there in the next life, thank God, otherwise we would never get a chance to make it back, right? If we always had to start at zero again. So yeah, it's Krishna's kindness that he allows us to do it step by step. Yes, and consciousness, yeah, floods the whole body. It actually keeps every cell of the body alive through consciousness. Like, I'm from a medical background, so anybody who knows a little bit about medical science, let's say you cut off the tip of your finger, you have only a few minutes in order to save that tip and stitch it back on, because if the cells are separated for more than, let's say, 15 minutes or something, they're dead and gone. Then we can't stitch it back on, you know, because the cells are disconnected from the powerhouse of consciousness, which is the soul. Yeah. And also, consciousness is not only flooding the whole body, but it actually also emanates from every pore of the skin. That's what we call the aura. It's factual. And it emanates mainly through the head. That's why we don't really have any paintings here. But that's why in paintings, Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, or even Krishna and Balaram, they always have a halo around their head, right? In Christianity, we also do this, you know, or the saintly personalities have this halo. So this is not just some artistic tool or something, but no, this depicts that effulgence that comes mainly from the head, actually, of a saintly person who is in pure godly consciousness. It is factual, actually. There's a nice little story when Prabhupada was walking somewhere in America through a city on the way off to a Rath Yatra parade, and a group of his disciples were surrounding him, and the disciples overheard a conversation of two policemen who were standing by them. And one policeman was saying to the other, "Look at this man, he is glowing." So even though these policemen had no idea who Prabhupada was, no idea, but they could perceive that Prabhupada was emanating a certain effulgence. They could see that. So, and in the same way, the other way around, if a person is in not such divine, sublime consciousness, but covered over by so many unwanted qualities, lust, greed, and envy, and false ego, wanting to be at the center of attention. And so then that kind of energy emanates from a person. And if we are a little perceptive, we can feel this. Yeah, we can feel this. It is quite a powerful and factual energy. We may all have that experience when we are, in a room with a person, especially if the room is small, and we have had some tension, some quarrel, some argument with that person. Even if nobody says anything, but just being in the room with that person, we may feel some negative energy there. We may feel that, this person is angry with me. Right? We had that experience. Yes. Yeah, so this is the power of consciousness. Actually, let me share with you a little story that illustrates how consciousness is really in every cell of the body. I know one family in Australia, one Vaishnava family, where the husband had a kidney failure. So his wife donated a kidney to him. This is possible, we can live with one kidney. So she gave one of her kidneys to him. So, and she was the only one in the family who was attached to eating chocolate. Nobody else in the family was keen on chocolate, but she was. So, and she always had her drawer where she had her stash of chocolate. So when they came back from their surgery, she had, the desire to have some chocolate. So she went to her drawer, but all the chocolate was gone. So she asked her husband, "Do you have an idea where my chocolate went?" And her husband was a little embarrassed, saying, "Yeah, well, something overcame me. And I had this urge to eat some chocolate. So I pinched it and ate it all." And then they thought maybe this is somehow connected with that kidney transplantation. So next time they went for the checkup, they were telling that story to the doctor. And the doctor was smiling and saying, "Oh, yes, yes, we know that. Every time we transplant an organ, the person receiving the organ for some time has the same cravings and tastes like the person donating it." And then he added, "It looks like organs can remember things," which is of course nonsense. Organs cannot remember things. But this doctor didn't know the power of consciousness. So her kidney, or both kidneys, were flooded with chocolate consciousness. And this chocolate consciousness was emanating from her husband's new kidney in his body, and that's why he had such a craving to eat some chocolate. So, but this only lasted for about a week or 10 days. And then his new kidney was flooded with his consciousness, which was free of chocolate consciousness. And then this was going away. So this is like a medical proof how consciousness really works, that it is in every cell of the body, in every organ, and it even emanates there. So, understanding all this, it becomes very clear that, for example, a pregnant mother, her child in the womb completely is flooded with her consciousness. Yeah. So child raising does not only start after giving birth, but even during pregnancy. And even before pregnancy, because we attract a certain soul according to our consciousness at the moment of conception. That determines what soul takes birth in our family. So it is not a coincidence, who takes birth in which family. And sometimes we may wonder, why is my child not taken to Krishna consciousness? Well, then we have to ask ourselves, what consciousness were we in at the moment of conception? Maybe it's connected with that. Yeah, so very important subtle science, that being a mother is a great service, great responsibility. So that's why during pregnancy, mothers should be in good consciousness, no stress, no anxiety, simply Shravanam Kirtanam, being happy and nicely situated in harmony with oneself and the world. And because the child feels everything, hears everything, and gets the mother's consciousness. Even later on, feeding, breastfeeding, the milk that comes from the mother's body, every molecule of the milk has mother's consciousness. Yeah. Like, at least the medical science understands that the immune system is transferred through feeding, Yeah, so at least that they understand, the immune system, but well, it gets much more subtle, not only immune system is transferred, but now the consciousness is transferred. Yes. So very, very important to know these things. And of course, every movement, every activity is executed through consciousness, right? Only by the power of consciousness can we move. So a person in very pure divine consciousness, all the movements are very attractive and beautiful, like Srila Prabhupada's movements. Often we hear Prabhupada disciples sharing that the way Prabhupada would walk or dance or talk, laugh, smile, or flick a piece of prasadam in his mouth, everything what Prabhupada was doing, how he was moving, was just so graciously, so amazingly attractive and fascinating and beautiful, because it was executed with such divine consciousness. Yeah, that's why just looking at Prabhupada, how he moved, that in itself is so uplifting for us, and so endearing. And in the same way, going to the other end of the spectrum, so a person, who is driven by false ego consciousness and envy, wanting to be the center of attention and showing off and being noticed, and so every movement such a person is doing, you can feel what kind of consciousness is behind it, right? It is emanating through every movement. So, and then that is not such a attractive and beautiful and uplifting experience to watch that person move, and so it can be a rather negative or almost contaminating energy which we can pick up there, like that. Yes, and of course also whatever we create with our hands, our consciousness enters that item, right? I'm sure we all know, we have heard this, that the consciousness of the cook enters the food he cooks, or she, right? We know that. That's why in temples we always try to arrange that a person in good consciousness, following strictly our practice, chanting 16 rounds and is cooking. Or in some temples only Brahmin initiated devotees cook. Because, yeah, hopefully when the person is seriously practicing, initiated, so then he has developed some, or she, some little devotion in their heart. And when we cook with that devotion for the Lord and his devotees, so then that devotional energy enters indeed the food we cook. It's factual. And it affects everybody who eats it. Yeah. Even non-devotees know that mother's cooking is the best, right? Yes, because mothers, hopefully, they carry a lot of devotion in their heart, and when they cook for the family, Prabhupada was always saying the most selfless love in the material world is that of the mother and the child. It's mother and child, not father and child. Sorry. But yeah, mother is sacrificing so much. More than the fathers do. The fathers are also important, definitely. But mother, even more important. She is the first guru. Yeah, so mother's cooking is the best, most tasty, full of devotion, and especially if she's also a devotee, and especially if the food is offered on the altar to the Lord, so that again, that energy of offering the food enters the food also. So very powerful. So that means, we are not only concerned, or is it vegetarian? Is there onion and garlic in it, or hopefully not? But no, we are interested, who cooked it? Who cooked it? What kind of consciousness was that person who cooked it? So that's why those of us who are seriously practicing Krishna consciousness, we are not so keen to eat outside, some food that's cooked by non-devotees, or even all the packaged things, the biscuits and whatever people buy, which is already processed and all that. Frozen pizzas, even if they're vegetarian, it's all handled by non-devotees. Their energy goes in there, so yeah. Usually, the more strict we are, the more we avoid these things, especially if it's on regular basis, If it's just once off or something, then all right, If it's an emergency situation or something, okay. But on a regular basis, should be avoided as far as possible. Because if we eat food that's cooked by non-devotees, then we will experience in the long run that our material desires increase, because materialistic people, their hearts are full of material desires and they cook it with lust and greed for money and this and that, and they meditate on sensual enjoyment they have with their wife when they get back home and all that. So, yeah, all that junk in the head enters the food, not so good. It's all pretty subtle, but that's the thing in this age of modern technology. We become a little dull towards all these subtleties, and we are less perceptive. Yeah, so not only, of course, the cooking, when we cook, the consciousness enters the food, but anything we create with our hands. So that's why handcrafted things always have a very nice energy, right? Any handcrafted things, let's say our mother is knitting a hat for us for the winter. Not sure if you wear hats here, probably not. But when you come to Europe, or even Mayapur in winter, pretty cold in the early morning hours, people wear hats and gloves in Mayapur in January. So if that hat is knitted with love and devotion by our mother, there's a special energy in that hat. Yes, it's lingering in there. Yes, whereas if you buy it made in the factory, not so attractive, not that nice energy in there. So anything that's made by hand, whatever it may be, is always more attractive because the consciousness of the person making it goes in there, Yeah, so, or even, that's why we really, we value Maha items of our Guru Maharaj, some had some scarf he was wearing, So it's not just some sentimental thing or something, but no, just by wearing something, the consciousness enters, if you wear a jumper or something, so your energy, your consciousness enters that item and is lingering there in a subtle way in that jumper. And yeah, that's why it's very precious for us. And we can even worship it, or we wear it and have it close to our heart, and it rubs off, a little bit. So yeah, these things are all factual, I know one devotee in Germany, over several years, he built his own house, almost with his hands, a few tools he had, but he mainly used wood, and wood already is a very nice material, nice energy, really absorbs, all kinds of energies. So yeah, when you enter his house, wow, there's a different energy in there, very different than just some concrete cement building. But yeah, so much of his devotion and energy and sacrifice went into that house. And you can feel it, it's quite powerful. Yeah, so these things are all there. And of course now let us look at other species of life. So plants, trees also do have consciousness, definitely. There is a personality in that tree body, Yes. Prabhupada was saying those people who like to show off their naked body. They take birth as trees. Then they can stand naked for so many lives or years. But anyway, trees, for example, they are very special creatures because not only do they transform carbon dioxide into oxygen, which is pretty good and necessary for us, but they also assimilate all kinds of negative energy and they give off healing energy. A couple of times I did some panchakarma treatment in South India, and the Ayurvedic doctor told me that, and he said I should go and hug trees. There was some garden in the back with all special medicinal trees, you know, which were even giving off more healing energy. So yeah, this tree hugging now in the Western world, it's really popular, a whole trend of hugging trees. I'm not sure, has that come to Kenya too? No? Yes, it's a new profession that you take people into the forest and give them some experience. In German we say, der Waldbademeister. You have heard this? Waldbademeister. I don't even know how to translate this. The forest bathing master. Somebody who helps you to bathe in the forest, not in water, but in the energy of the trees. You know? And they teach us how to experience the forest. You know? And one of those experiences is to hug the trees. Yes, but this is there, you know, trees are they give shade and fruits and flowers, and they are more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, very tolerant, you know, so they're quite amazing creatures. Also, I heard the trees help each other. When there's a tree who is a little weaker, then they give some strength through the roots and support that tree and so on, so that they communicate. You know, they are aware of each other's presence there in the forest. You know, they're not just some dull pieces of wood there or something. You know, they communicate. They have a whole system there of communication. And I remember when I was a teenager, which is quite a while ago, 50 years ago. So I heard this report on the radio. In those days we didn't have internet and YouTube and all these things. So people were more listening to the radio, hearing, you know, not bad. So, and there was a report about the consciousness of trees. And it impressed me so much that I still remember it 50 years later. And they were saying, oh, we have a cat also coming to the class here. This is like in Bangladesh. There the cats are also frequently visiting the temple and strolling around the temple.
Yeah, different concepts to eat something.
Yes.
Yes. That concept.
Yes. So yeah, they're also valuable members of the community. Yeah, so in any case, they were demonstrating how you can transform the vibrations coming off a tree's consciousness. You can transform that in sound vibration. And they were showing what a tree sounds like that is peaceful. And it was just some buzzing noise. So that's the tree which is peaceful. And then they demonstrated what a tree sounds like, which is in anxiety. And my God. So the tree that was in anxiety, that went all up and down. I'm not going to try and imitate it, but it was, it was a whole up and down sound there. And then they shared why this tree was in anxiety. So the reason for the tree being in anxiety was because one person approached that tree who 3 years earlier cut off some branches. And that tree recognized that person. Oh no, not this guy is coming. He once hurt me and cut off my branches, and probably he's going to do the same thing again. I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? How a tree remembers a person that 3 years before cut some branches off the tree. Wow. And we may think, well, but the tree doesn't have eyes, so how can he see that person? Well, he can feel that person's energy. Yeah, and I mean, Prabhupada, he was very strongly preaching on this point that we should just not just whimsically cut down trees. Any of you have been to the Juhu temple in Mumbai? Yes? You notice this tree in front of the temple, which is almost in the middle of the road, right? And you think immediately, what the hell is this tree doing here? It really looks out of place. So there is a whole story which Dhiraj Maharaj shares in one of his Vyasaputra nominations actually. And he tells the story how Prabhupada was really insisting that this tree should not be cut down, because that's kind of our materialistic mentality, that we think, oh, this tree is in the way, it's in the way, let's get rid of it. You know? But Prabhupada was strongly emphasizing, don't cut down this tree. So, and the devotees followed this. And the tree is still today there. And when Prabhupada had left India for some time and he came back to visit Mumbai, already at the airport, he asked, is this tree still there? Or did you cut down this tree? Yeah, he was really concerned. Yeah, so Prabhupada was very strong on this, that we should not just cut down the trees. There's a few bona fide reasons to cut down trees, for wood when we need to heat or cook, and for clearing some land for agriculture and that. But yeah, in any case, there's only a few good reasons, but not if it's just another way or something. Yeah, because trees are very useful. I mean, we all know it's a pious activity to plant trees, right? Yes, in Vrindavan they sometimes have this campaign that's plant so many trees, and because an area without trees it is not so nice and auspicious, and it's all bare, and yeah, so. And there is consciousness there. Even in the vegetables. I know one devotee in Sweden. We have a rural community there, Almvik. So he grows some organic vegetables there. And I once talked to him about this, how even plants, vegetables have consciousness. And he said, yes, I'm convinced of this. And he was telling his neighbor has a better soil. And he also grows organic carrots. And he said, but my carrots, they taste better because I talk to my carrots. I chant Hare Krishna to them. I grow them with love and devotion so we can offer them to Panchatattva in in the temple, and they have a better taste. You know? So yeah, the consciousness of the gardener, of the farmer, affects the plants. You know, they can feel that, and then they're more happy, and then the vegetables or fruits they produce, they're more juicy and tasty. And many times I observed this, like in Germany in the supermarket, you can buy organic carrots, but they're completely tasteless, even though they're organic. Why? Because they're all, it's all industrialized agriculture. There's no person there involved anymore. It's all machines going around and picking them and watering them and whatnot. So yeah, the carrots there, they're a little lonely, and they're missing that loving exchange of human beings. They're caring for them, and therefore, even though they're organic, but they're completely tasteless. And with flowers, you can also observe, the flowers which are homegrown in the granny's garden, they are so beautiful. But all the commercially grown flowers in big greenhouses or with machines, they're like plastic, very artificial, Yeah. And of course, the best flowers are the forest flowers. Krishna likes them the best. Yeah, so that's why when we grow flowers in our garden and we offer them to the deities, so much more pleasing. They also have a much stronger aroma, fragrance, whereas all the commercially grown flowers, the roses, carnations, they hardly smell at all. Yeah, so all these things are quite interesting. One last point I want to make, that consciousness travels on sound vibration. This is also quite an astonishing arrangement that Krishna makes, that the voice is very closely connected to one's emotion, right? Our emotions come out through the voice. We can't hide it. If we are angry, as soon as you open your mouth, other people will realize that you're angry. Doesn't matter how much you try to hide it. So, and that's why, the divine, sublime, pure consciousness travels on the sound vibration coming out of a person's mouth, and it affects each and every one who hears it in the audience. It's a whole transcendental affair. That's why kirtan is not just some nice music. It's not a musical performance. It's a highly transcendental affair where the consciousness of the kirtan leader is traveling on the sound. And especially when we are keen, when we are greedy to capture something, then the heart is open and it will affect our heart. It will color our heart. Yeah. But same thing also when the kirtan leader is trying to bring attention to himself. How beautiful my voice is. Everybody should hear it. I'm the best singer. So then this false ego consciousness travels on the sound vibration. And then we catch that too, that mood. Yeah. So that's why, especially when we lead the kirtans, it's quite a big responsibility actually, and we should really try our very best to really be in good consciousness, which means we have to connect. Tomorrow we will talk about Holy Name. So Kirtan or japa is all about connecting with the Lord, calling out to Him, longing for the relationship with Krishna. That's how we are meant to sing in Kirtan. You know? Then the Kirtan is spiritually powerful and elevating, uplifting. But if that connecting with Krishna is not there, well, Satchidananda Swami calls it empty medicine capsule. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, actually. Yes, then it's simply nice music, but not more than that. Yeah. So it's all about connecting. And not only the Kirtan leader, but anybody who takes part in the Kirtan, the instrument players too, Madanga player. If a Madanga player wants to show off and be noticed, so that consciousness comes out of his fingertips. And that consciousness is what gives the sound of the Madanga playing. So, if you're a little perceptive, you can feel, oh, this Madanga player wants to be noticed and recognized. I'm not talking about any of you boys here. But yes, but if we play like that, then it actually contaminates the Kirtan. Because that person wants to glorify himself rather than Krishna. Yeah? Or cartels, the same. If somebody wants to show off what amazing thing he or she can do there on the cartels, ooh, you can feel it, and it contaminates the whole Kirtan. I heard tomorrow we have some Kirtan before the program, so you better keep that in mind for tomorrow's session. Or even dancing, any kind of showing off, whether it's singing, playing Madanga, playing Kada, or dancing. The men have their way of showing off, the women have their way of showing off in dancing. So any kind of showing off contaminates the whole atmosphere. Yeah. So, Kirtan is a whole transcendental affair which should be entered with pure consciousness. I mean, we have the story in Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? When Mahaprabhu was performing his private, confidential Kirtan pastimes, only amongst his close associates, and there was one brahmachari who wanted to be there, and he was only eating fruits and drinking milk, and first they didn't want to allow him to be there, but he insisted. So all right, Swarup Damodar, let him in. But Mahaprabhu stopped the Kirtan because he could feel there's somebody here who should not be here. And he asked, so who have you brought here? Yeah, this brahmachari who only eats fruits and drinks milk. And Mahaprabhu got angry, kicked him out. Do you think you can achieve bhakti just by eating fruits and drinking milk? And he kicked him out. So he could perceive that there was somebody there, who was not as elevated as all his personal associates there. But then, because that brahmachari was actually very happy to get that chastisement of the Lord, so then later on the Lord allowed him to come back and he got purified by that chastisement. Yeah, so anyway, time is up. Let me see if we have some little question on this topic of consciousness. Is there something which you want to further discuss? This incense, can somebody distinguish this incense? It really affects my voice. Just put it out.
So, Krishna Madhani.
Krishna.
So, sometimes we know this, the consciousness of the people goes less in like fruits and the milk product. What is the reason behind that? Consciousness of the people, bad consciousness absorb this foods and milk product less. Bad consciousness of the people absorb this foods and milk product absorb less.
Well, as far as I understand it, is simply because fruits are not cooked. They're not handled as much. You know, when somebody offers you some fruit, it only involves the cutting. It's not cooked and processed. You know? I haven't really heard that milk products are less affected. I don't know. It maybe depends if it's just milk or whether it's more processed and, you know, transformed into paneer and sandesh or burfi. I mean, burfi, there's quite a bit of cooking time involved. Quite a bit of consciousness goes in. With milk, I haven't heard that actually, I'm not sure. But fruits, you know, that's why we say, all right, if we visit a non-devotee's house, if he's not vegetarian, we can accept whole fruit, not cut, whole fruit. Because, yeah, the knives may also be contaminated or something. But just to accept the Vaishnava hospitality of accepting something in that house and giving them an opportunity to serve a devotee, you know, we accept whole fruit. You know. So there's not much handling in it. What else? Anything else?
Just one question is, from what I've understood in this class, what I've understood in this class, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that everything is based on an energy field. Like all this consciousness is always subtle energy that's being passed around everywhere. And you made the point that nowadays we are actually becoming less perceivable to this
Perceptive.
perception to this subtle energy.
Yeah.
So and the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to try and become more and more aware of this perception of how energy flows between objects and people. So is there any small tips that we can immediately apply in our life in Krishna consciousness that could easily uplift our understanding, our perceiving ability?
Well, I mean, hearing is always the first step, you know? That's why I like to discuss all these subtle topics, because hearing wakes us up from our unconscious sleeping state, our spiritual coma, you know, by hearing. And then it is a matter of purification. There's no quick shortcut or something. But as we know, hearing is always the step number one, you know, hearing the philosophy and hearing about these topics. But then, yeah, as we become more purified, we simply become more perceptive. So it is a matter of purification, you know. But yeah, knowing how consciousness works is always the first step, you know. But I guess also in these modern days, people are so distracted, you know, with, phone, such a distraction. I don't know if I shared this, but I live without a phone. I travel the whole world, I don't have a phone. Yeah, I don't want to invite this into my life. No phone for me. So distracted, you know, people are always there. So I can nicely travel all around the world without a phone. Of course, I have a laptop, but that's in my room. I don't carry that around with me everywhere. And yeah, it protects me from so much prajalpa and criticism and whatnot. You know, all the social media, you will not find me much there. You know, I keep away from all these things. But people are so distracted with these things, you know, and also breed so much impersonalism. Right? In the evenings, often in families, everybody sits there with their phone. People don't even talk to each other anymore. Everybody's chatting with people on the other side of the planet who they've never met, or even, you know, in the plane, at the airports, or the trains. Everybody's sitting there with their phone. Everybody. My God, I'm often the only one who's not busy with the phone there, you know. Yeah, very impersonal. You know, creates a very impersonal atmosphere. You know, people don't even talk to each other anymore. They lose the ability to actually, the social capacities of building relationships get also more and more lost. You know? Yeah, and then people just become dull-headed. Only going for visual stimulations and distractions and watching things on the screen. I grew up without TV too. When I was a kid, my parents were smart enough not to have a TV. I mean, now TV is outdated technology. But in my childhood, it was the big new thing. I remember it was the neighboring kids are first black and white, and oh wow, now it's color. You know, at first was this 1 or 2 programs, and then satellite TV came, and you know, but my parents immediately realized this is nonsense, we don't need this. So we had books, we were reading, yeah, my parents read us stories. So this visual stimulation, that also makes people very, they can't concentrate, and they're restless, and you know, and become dull-headed. That's how the Kali Yuga person becomes more and more dull-headed. It's all with this modern technology. You know, what people think is progress, but now this is creating the Kali Yuga dull-headed person. Yeah. Yes. Somebody there in the back.
I would like to ask, how do we improve the consciousness, like especially of things that we can't control? Some of the foods we eat, maybe you're in a situation where the mother didn't cook it, or maybe a student is in the hostel, they don't cook the food. You have to consume what is made by those who don't know. So can a prayer not be enough to improve the energy and consciousness?
Can what be enough?
Prayer.
Prayer.
Put your own good energy there. I just wondering, because we can't always control who we deal with and at times what we eat as well.
Well, I mean, with eating, we can still, try and minimize that we eat food which is cooked by non-devotees. I mean, I don't know what the situation is here, but in Bangladesh, I've been very involved with student preaching there. So the students, they cook their simple meals, somewhere in the hostel and all that, or they go to a devotee restaurant or something, get some prasadam. Some dry prasadam, something can be done, to minimize. But let me make this question a little broader. We can say, well, how to try and protect us from any kind of negative energy, because it's not only through the food, even sitting 8 hours in some office with non-devotees, and they have all garbage in their head, that emanates from their bodies and their talks, their sound vibration, and. Oh yeah, I didn't mention, by the way, because consciousness travels on sound vibration, so that's why we're also very careful what kind of music we invite into our life, what kind of sound vibration. So, all this pop, rock, Bollywood, whatever people listen here in Kenya, I'm not sure, so this is all contaminating sound vibration, So that's why we try and stick to kirtan, So, but anyway, the main process to protect ourselves against contaminating consciousness coming from our surroundings is by good sadhana. That's why Prabhupada said, inject the blood with KC drug. So the KC drug, that's the sadhana, the Krishna conscious drug. So that's why we should start the day with some spiritual activity, some good japa chanting. So tomorrow that will be the topic, the chanting. So if we chant, if we get up early, we chant good rounds, we read a few verses of the Bhagavatam before we start the day, so that gives us some little immunity, Of course, that shouldn't make us overconfident that we think, oh, nothing can, affect me or something. But yeah, definitely, and anybody, I don't know if you go in book distribution here in Mombasa, but anybody who's been out in the street on book distribution, you know, if you chant good rounds in the mornings, before you go out, you will not get so much affected by people, rejecting you or abusing you or whatever verbally. You will just fly over it, That's what it means to be transcendent, or that we don't get knocked around by the 3 modes of material nature as we go through our day. But if we don't chant in the morning and we just get up or we just mumble something on the counter there or something that doesn't have any potency, so then we will be affected by the 3 modes of material nature and by all the negative energies and consciousness around us. Yeah. But also in this regard, let me express, Prabhupada very much emphasized rural communities, farm communities. And as Kali Yuga progresses, the life in the cities will become more and more disturbed and crazy and full of violence and negativity. So, that's why in the long run, it will be important for devotees to extricate themselves from this madness in city life. And we have to build our own rural communities, like our little bubbles there, our oasis, where we can bring up our children in a nice environment. Because the consciousness in the city is very different than in rural life, village life. Village life is always the best. Krishna demonstrated it. All right, time is going. Just in case we have somebody who was not here yesterday, let me say a few words about this book, because each book is actually a 15-hour course, which I usually offer in Mayapur. I have established a little institute for spiritual culture, and I'm teaching these courses in Mayapur, so now I'm putting them in book form to make it more accessible to people. So spiritual culture, Krishna's divine system, this is all about women, actually. We women have a very powerful Shakti. We can bring the very best out of a man, spiritually or materially, or we can ruin his life and destroy him. That's the power of a woman. Yeah, you're laughing, but it's true. And Bhagavatam says we women should be the power of inspiration to the men, which means that we should empower the men and not compete with them. But now man-woman equality, the women are often competitive, they're competing with the men, and the men usually don't like this very much, right? Yes. It leads to a lot of problems. So any woman who wants to have harmonious relationships with men in her life, she should check out this book, please. Also for young girls, very interesting. I'm sharing a lot of stories from Bangladesh in the book, which helped me to understand the whole topic. But also every man who wants to get the support and empowerment of a woman should also read the book. Actually, when you read this book, you will understand how this man-woman equality actually puts the whole human society upside down. The equality is there on the level of the soul, but not on the level of the body. And in many ways, we women are superior to the men, yeah? But we have to know how to use that Shakti, and there you get some ideas. Then we have sheltering relationships. This book is all about the importance of having a mentor. That just having Guru, Diksha, Shiksha Guru, not enough. We need this well-wishing friend who can guide us how to move forward step by step. If we don't have that, very easily we stay in our comfort zone, and then we become stagnant, and absolutely nothing is really happening in our heart, even though we may be coming here every Saturday evening and all that, but yeah, nothing really transforms. And then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. Actually, today's topic on consciousness, that's the first chapter in this book. Yeah. And there's so much more in there. Yesterday we were talking about forgiveness. That's also from this book. So false ego, there's so many different facets. And I'm explaining in all detail how false ego manifests, how we detect it, how we dissolve it. There's a 5-step program, how to subdue and dissolve it. And there's a whole chapter on chanting the holy name, on kirtan and japa, how to chant so it subdues and dissolves the false ego. And of course, very helpful for family life. Family life can be a battlefield of false egos. Who is right, who is wrong? Just see, I told you, didn't I? And why don't you do it like I said? This is all false ego stuff. So often we ruin all our relationships just over these petty false ego quarrels. And then we have entering the Grihastha ashram. That's a handbook for matchmaking. How to see that a boy and a girl are matching for marriage. There is an art to it which is completely lost nowadays. So there you will find a whole list of over 200 topics which both should discuss with a cool head in the presence of a parent or a matchmaker or mentor. And that list, by the way, is coming from Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. has a big Indian community, so it's suitable for people from Indian background. Yeah. So very important book for all those who are not married yet, and for the parents or mentors or matchmakers who want to help others settle in compatible marriages. Because yeah, divorce rate is going up everywhere, even here in Kenya too, I heard. So often it's because of incompatibility, that people just meet through physical attraction and then wears off after a couple of years, and then we realize, oh, we are actually not matching. And family life as an ashram, secrets of success. How to create the culture of bhakti in our home. We have to learn this, we have to get some education, because often our home life is not such a suitable place for cultivating pure devotional service. So there's so many things in there. It's like a handbook for successful Krishna conscious family life. So many things. Every household should have this. And there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy in marriage. How to live this principle of no illicit sex life in married life. Nobody talks about it. There's a bit of confusion. People are often at a loss how to make things work. And if we don't understand that point maturely, this also leads to marriage problems and divorce. Yeah. So I did some research. I came across interesting episodes with Prabhupada, where he says things which most devotees have not heard, and they're surprised that Prabhupada gave that instruction. So, yeah. And last but not least, the Vanaprasthashram, meeting death with joy. That's the whole goal of Krishna consciousness, meeting death with joy. And especially this last phase, very important. Once the kids are grown up and settled in life, the parents have to move on to the next phase, Vanaprastha. It's a must for everybody, because these family attachments are so deep, and we have to loosen them to remember Krishna alone at the moment of death. And there's a whole chapter on death in it, what happens exactly, all the subtleties, how to prepare, and how to accompany others. Very important service, because our parents are leaving and senior devotees are leaving, sooner or later we are leaving. We have to know how to give good association. All our life we need good association, and especially in this last phase. Otherwise we are very easily lost. So if any of you would like to get some books, each book is 2,000 shillings you have, right? So a whole set comes to 12,000. Yesterday already quite a few people got the whole set. And you can pay cash or M-Pesa. Pesa or peso? Pesa. Okay. Yeah. So anybody who wants to get some books, please come up to the table right now, because yeah, I don't have so many books left, and we can work it out. Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Sorry to go over time, but it's Saturday, so no work today. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna.